It is day 114 of the second Trump administration, and today marks Trump's first major international trip of his term. He started his Middle East tour with a stop in Saudi Arabia and a flurry of declarations. Trump announced he's lifting sanctions on Syria, signaled that he's open to negotiating with Iran, and announced a $142 billion arms deal with Saudi Arabia without offering much detail. My colleague Garrett Haake has a closer look.
President Trump tonight the guest of honor at a lavish Saudi Arabian state dinner, capping off a day of spectacle and statecraft. Saudi fighter jets escorting Air Force One into Riyadh, where the president was met by Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. The motorcade escorted by an honor guard on horseback. The president touting new deals, with the Saudis agreeing to buy $142 billion of American military equipment, part of what the White House says is a $600 billion investment in the U.S.
You're going to be creating tremendous numbers of jobs in the United States.
The president noting a better-than-expected inflation report, now down to 2.3% compared to a year ago, the smallest increase in 4 years, and bringing with him a host of top American business executives, including Elon Musk and the CEOs of Amazon, Coca-Cola, and Nvidia, and announcing he'll lift sanctions on Syria's new government at the urging of the Saudi Crown Prince.
I will be ordering the cessation of sanctions against Syria in order to give them a chance at greatness. Oh, what I do for the Crown Prince.
And while Trump is talking about making big deals for this country, his family has been making big deals for themselves in the Middle East. The Trump Organization has entered into real estate deals with each country Trump is visiting. One of those countries, the UAE, is also financially involved with the Trump family's growing crypto empire. And of course, there is the huge controversy about Trump's plan to accept the gift of a super luxury jet from Qatar to use as Air Force One. We've even seen some Republicans speak out against it. Trump is visiting Qatar later this week. And with that, let's bring in our leadoff panel. Jeff Mason, White House correspondent for Reuters. Carol Leonnig, Pulitzer Prize-winning investigative reporter with The Washington Post. And Daniela Diaz, a congressional reporter for Notice. Jeff, we're going to get into the overt grift in a second. But from a policy perspective, the decision to make this his first foreign trip, what does that signal about how he, his administration, are repositioning America's place on the world stage?
First major foreign trip. It's important to remind us or to remember that he also went to Rome for the Pope's funeral. But you're not wrong to ask the question about why make this basically his first statement in terms of foreign travel, going to the Middle East and starting off in Saudi Arabia. I was on the president's first foreign trip as a first-term president, and he went to Saudi Arabia then, too. And I think the message then and the message now is that this president is deeply interested in the relationship between Saudi and the United States. The paradigm that we all know to use with regard to President Trump in terms of deal-making applies perfectly to this trip. That's what he did. That's what he's doing. And the deal-making applies, in this case, both as deals for the country and deals for himself and his family.
I mean, the latter is what makes this so unusual, Jeff.
Yeah, absolutely. And over the context of another story that I know we're going to talk about in terms of the gift from the Qataris of this plane, it's, I don't know if we want to use the word overshadowing, underlining, underscoring his entire trip.
Let's talk, Carol, before we get there, about Trump calling MBS an incredible man, calling him a friend, the same guy you have U.S. intel believing ordered the murder of Jamal Khashoggi.
Yeah, and let's not put too fine a point on it. I mean, ordering the dismembering, the bone sawing of a journalist who was critical of MBS and his father and had written about authoritarian moves in that country. Authoritarianism doesn't bother Donald Trump, obviously. In fact, he is trying in every way in his last 110 days in office to connect himself with authoritarian moves to consolidate power and control it. I've never seen someone clamp down on it so tightly. And so when he calls MBS a grand man, it's for two reasons. One, the guy has a lot of money, and that is very appealing to Donald Trump. I couldn't agree more with Jeff about the deal making. That's first and foremost. But second, it's the way in which some of these leaders lead their country, the way he wants to lead America.
Let's go back to the Qatari jet. I think it is notable, Daniela, that you do have Republicans on the Hill saying, I don't know how I feel about this. The fact that you have Ben Shapiro out in the right-wing blogosphere saying this is actually going to get in the way of Trump's agenda. When you talk to folks on the Hill, do you have any sense that they might actually take action, use the power of oversight, use the power of judiciary to hold the president responsible?
I mean, we just heard from Josh Hawley just a few hours ago saying that he doesn't believe that the president should have this much power to accept a gift like this. He's getting a lot of criticism from rank-and-file Republicans in the Senate. Even John Thune spoke out saying he wasn't even sure if this deal was real. We heard from Shelley Moore Capito, who's also in leadership, saying she didn't really think this was a good idea. Speaker Mike Johnson just a few hours ago saying, I don't know, I haven't seen the details, avoiding the question from reporters. This is really tricky for them to wiggle around because it is not the best moment right now for President Donald Trump to say that he's accepting this gift. And I would argue what Jeff said, it is overshadowing his trip right now abroad.
Well, just because you accept a bribe in public does not make it a bribe.
You know, that is so interesting the way you put that. Many of the people that I've interviewed have described exactly that he's sort of trying to cleanse a self-enrichment platform by doing it right in front of everyone and getting angry the other day, right, in the White House when reporters, Jeff probably included, asked, do you think this is a conflict of interest potentially? But you know what? I'm so glad you brought up the Republicans and their concern, both of you, because who are they hearing from? They're hearing from national security and intelligence officials behind the scenes who are saying, what are we doing taking a plane that could be loaded with surveillance equipment and flying the president of the United States?
And if I could just add, Carol, you would definitely know this better than me, but I'm seeing that it's going to cost millions of dollars to retrofit this plane to make sure that there's nothing wrong with it, should we get it. And of course, Trump is touting on Truth Social, this is a free plane. This shit is a gift to the United States, but it's going to end up costing taxpayers a lot of money.
Totally. And it undercuts the whole theory of like, oh, I'm tired of waiting for Boeing. I need a good plane now. Yeah. Like, well, that's going to take a little while.
Well, and then let's layer onto that, Jeff, the fact that you have Qatar saying that the deal is still under review. Trump clear again today. He wants that jet. Where is this going from here?
Yeah, I mean, and I think Daniela mentioned that some people that she had spoken to in Congress weren't sure if this was really happening. It's absolutely happening from the White House perspective. That doesn't mean there's not going to be a way to stop it or that others might not get in the way, but it's absolutely something that the president wants, and he's made that clear, and officials around him have made that clear. To your question in terms of next steps, I don't know. I mean, they clearly will have to figure out a few things, including the security issues and the costs involved in that, and how you proceed with such an unusual gift from a foreign government that will be used as the traveling White House in the air. That's what Air Force One is, and the security aspects and pieces of that, in addition to the kind of ethical questions that we're asking, are all things that will still need to be answered. I do want to say one other thing, though, picking up from what Daniela said about Speaker Mike Johnson. When leaders like Mike Johnson say, I'm not familiar with the details, President Trump uses that as an answer too sometimes when it's just not something he wants to talk about. This is a story that's been around now for a couple days. It's I think pretty hard to accept that the details aren't clear and aren't being discussed at a level of Republican leadership and people around the president and people in his circle.
Let's talk about how this likely would be litigated, because we watched a version of this under Trump 1.0. You watched Congress try to bring a case. They were told they did not have standing. You also had another case that was brought by a group that included crew. Ultimately gets to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court says, well, at this point, he's no longer president, so they punt on the question. I mean, the fact that the Supreme Court didn't weigh in when they had the chance essentially means that legally folks are starting here on a blank slate, should there be an appetite to bring lawsuits here?
Yeah, I think someone the other day said that this idea that I had to write a lot about this at the time, you know, all the ways in which the Trump family was enriching itself by having foreign and domestic visits to various hotels where the Secret Service would then have to pay for those places, all the foreign travel where the Secret Service was going to end up at Trump's hotels. You know, it now seems so minor and quaint that those
because we
were
have a physical manifestation, a plane.